Traders, this is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Wednesday, the 12th of November. What a wild day in terms of rotations on the tape today. SPY finished, just flat for the day, no big deal. Same thing with the Qs, essentially flat for the day. Not much going on there, right? And then the Dow finished up 7/10 of a percentage point. Small caps underperformed a little bit, down 0.2 of a percentage point. Bitcoin fell again today, down 1.3%. Gold had a big day, as well as silver had a huge day today, up 1.6% for the day. VIX finished in the green today, up 1.3%. Risk disclaimer in front of you: everything that we're going through is for information purposes only. Okay, so I'm being a little bit sarcastic here because there was a gap up again today, and the gap up was sold like pretty quickly in the first 15-20 minutes, and that's why you could see there's red here for the Qs, because they were down six tenths of a percentage point. So they rallied into the open today. My question for like this morning, I was like, it's almost the Will Ferrell emoji that goes around that says, I don't believe you. That's kind of what I thought this morning too, with the Qs up this morning. Remember in yesterday's video, I talked about all the rotation going into places like healthcare, going into energy, going into a couple other places too, but out of some of the high growth. And Qs, I talked about how we're just down slightly for the day yesterday, but it was mainly just that. Energy companies that, believe it or not, there are those in the Qs, even though there's only 100 companies, and you think of Qs as mostly growth. The Qs had things like energy, a couple consumer names, even like there's a couple of consumer staples in there that were up yesterday that were kind of keeping the Qs somewhat buoyant. So when I saw that the Qs were up like 6/10 or like 0.5% going into the open, I was like, I don't think this is going to hold. And I thought, hey, I'd be really surprised if the Qs go up from here. And again, you're seeing that profit taking that's happening there, and there's a little bit of a move out of the AI arena right now. So yes, look at what Dow stocks did today. It seems like folks are a bit more comfortable being in some of the names that have dividends, have pretty predictable earning streams, right? There's a little bit more certainty with that type of stuff. And these names are a little bit cheaper too. Some of these things that you hear in social media and on financial TV, sometimes they it's like a catch-22 type situation where you start talking about all these things, about that names are expensive, that there's high valuation, right? What happens? There's a rotation out of some of those names that have gone up a lot, and that's the course of a normal bull market, by the way. Things that have gone up a lot, like the AI trade has, there's going to be some profit taking, and there's going to be, not movement out of equities completely, but it's a movement into some of the other areas of the market. Hence, we talked about that PPH, the pharma ETF, making a new all-time high yesterday, making another new all-time today. The Dow stocks making a new all-time high yesterday, making another new all-time high today. What got into it today was the metals and mining. So that was the focus group for me today. That was really strong. I looked at the XME ETF. I'm going to bring up charts in just a second here, and I'm going to bring up so that you could see the spreadsheet a little bit clearer. But I had talked about metals and mining a couple days ago. I put on an XME trade. It didn't work. I took it off in my trading account. I actually put it on in my TTG trend portfolio, and that group did very well today. That was up 2.6% today. The gold and gold miners crushed it today. They were up huge. I was able to catch that silver miners trade this morning. I was looking around because I did this. I can't remember if it was yesterday or the day before, where I was really looking. I think it was yesterday where I was really looking at the gold mining group, and I decided to kind of jump on that silver miners trade today, which we've seen a lot of call positioning in that group today. All right, so let me get to a couple things here, and I want to just bring. I just want to show the. Sorry, I keep flicking the microphone on and off. But this is just the midday note that I put out. So, right. So a couple of things that I was talking about this was, and here's the chart of the Dow um, breaking out to new highs today. Here's Dow Jones Industrial Average versus the Qs. Notice what this is going through right now, right? So it's been in this downward channel where the Qs have really outperformed. So, it's kind of like also another way to kind of think about it too. I'll put the camera on for just a second, so you could see my visualization. But it's also just stretching the rubber band, right? When you have the Qs outperform as much as they have this year, and the AI trade outperform as much as it has, it's kind of that stretch, and then you let it go, and all of a sudden there's going to be this big movement back into some other things of the market. So that's kind of what you've got going on right now. You could see, even for my strong earnings, I can't zoom in there, but by strong earnings list, AA was the name that was the biggest mover. Alcoa was up 6%, but you know so we're going to go through some charts in just a second. But also, I would say too, what was particularly interesting is RSP had this huge trade towards the end of yesterday. RSP is the equally weighted S&P ETF, so it's the same names that are in SPY, but it's not market cap weighted where the larger names get the bigger weight. It's equally weighted, so every name gets the same type of thing. There was this huge trade that hit the tape yesterday, January 194 calls that went up in the RSP, and that's about $4.7 million in premium. We don't usually see something like that. So what's the view? Why would somebody do that? Because they think that the rally is going to broaden out, right? Things like financials, things like all the areas that we talked about, industrials, maybe materials get involved. But this is what I also got involved in today. I really like these two charts. This is so I'm going to start moving this over here. By the way, look at this move in Cisco, which again, right in the wheelhouse of what this market likes right now. Cheaper stuff. But here is the move in STLD, right? Pretty methodical, right? So sometimes, again, maybe cover the chart, cover the ticker up, and make believe it's your favorite AI stock, because I know it's harder for some folks to get involved in more of the value type trade, but steel names can be kind of fun to trade. So STLD, this was what I referred to this morning as dealer choice. Both of these were setting up quite nicely right on the top of the value area, and came into the 20 and the 5-day moving average. Notice these two moving averages squeezed. I like that when that happens. Also, NUE, I decided to go with STLD because I thought it could move a little bit more. Hence, and it did. But this was up 3% today, right? Cliffs also, because I didn't really see call activity, and you don't need to see call activity to go into a trade. But they were bottom feeding in Cliff Resources, or Cleveland Cliffs, excuse me. Today there were some calls in this. Now again, this is the underperformer. Maybe it continues to rally up to that 50-day moving average, but again, I stick with the names that are stronger, and I would rather trade personally STLD or Nucor. So that was one part of it that I thought was interesting today. Here's the chart of XME. Again, I went over this chart a couple days ago, but nice for this to get inside the value area. Now you could use your 50-day moving average as the stop, but again, kind of covers some of those names. This is also an equally weighted ETF, so it includes the names that I just went over, and it also includes what the some of the gold miners are doing too. Notice this move today too. This is up 3.3% today. Again, acting like an AI type stock or a high growth name. Here was what silver did. So let me bring up. So first of all, I took some profits. I've been sitting long. I've been patient. It's tough to have patience all the time in this market, but I was very patient with this gold trade where I established in here once it started to turn a little bit, and I just stayed with it. And I did take some profits today right at the top of the value area for the month. Right, that's short-term resistance. So that's that. Also, look at the move in silver today, up 4% today and challenging those previous highs outside of the value area. So showing a little bit of relative strength, right? And you could do this, by the way, SLV, and I like how you can do this in TradingView. But if you put SLV in the numerator and gold in the denominator, you could see that silver has been outperforming as of late. One other chart that I would take a look at is what's been going on with gold versus Bitcoin. Right, I tend to look at both of these, but notice what's been going on here. And if you look at the weekly chart, you're going to see that this has been outperforming recently. It almost has a bit of like a cup and handle pattern to it. Right. So again, I favor right now gold and silver than what's going on in Bitcoin, which looks like it potentially is breaking down. I say potentially. I would watch this week's lows or yeah. So basically, I would watch this 5680 level. Notice it got rejected. It could not get into the value area. Um, so let me keep going here. But the last thing I mentioned was silver. I did not mention the silver mining ETF. I thought this has more runway. Just got over the 50-day moving average today. It was up about 4% for the day and bullish 80% rule. When you see this value area green, that means that the bullish 80% rule is has been activated. If you want to know more about the valuaries and the MarketWebs system that I use, you could go to my pinned tweet on Twitter. And there's a section down there and it will say learn more about the MarketWebs. But basically, what that means that there's an 80% chance once you break into the value area like this that you go from one side to the other. That's a nice percentage move. That's another 10% higher. So again, it's not a 100% rule, but it's an 80% rule. And I'm favoring that. I like that. All right. So that's is there anything else that I wanted to cover? Affirm and the financials. I took a trade here in a firm. I was a little bit late. By the time I saw this, I had an alert at a firm right on the 50-day moving average. So it broke that. Now I'm just looking for this to continue and make a move up to that 88 VPOC. But ultimately, I mean, look at what the financials did today. SoFi had a big day. Right? SoFi was just trying to break higher and then it kind of got rejected. Maybe a false break there, the 50-day moving average, right back out to new highs. What about these guys? Morgan Stanley was up 2% today. Goldman. So again, I know there's folks that like to do this, which I'm not like a huge phrase of saying this all the time. When folks say, "Well, Goldman Sachs breaking out to new highs," that's not bearish. Okay, that's cute, right? But yeah, there's something to that. When you do have Goldman Sachs breaking out and some of the financials breaking out, that generally is a pretty good thing for the market. And again, it's just proof that there's more rotation in this market. Look at JP Morgan going out to new highs. I'm watching Citigroup today or tomorrow. I did not put on a position, but there was some call positioning in this. So, these things look pretty good. Like I said, they've been kind of dormant for a while. This hasn't gone anywhere over the last month. Trend looks fine. Berkshire Hathaway. Now look at what this stock did today. So again, this is kind of just a proxy for value, right? This is trying to break higher, right? So if it does, maybe this could get up to this VPOC up here at 529. Stock's at 500. Just to revisit some of the healthcare names from yesterday, Lilly. There's a street. Speaking of Citigroup, one of the analysts over there put a street high price target on this of 1,500. So it really broke through that 1,000 barrier. That it felt like the stock was going to get to. Yes, it's extended here. At this point, maybe watch for some consolidation, but this is a heck of a nice move. I put this in the TTG trend portfolio. Was it last week? Which is a little late to do it, but hey, that was the break of the value area. The other name that I've been talking a lot was this MDGL, which I also put in the TTG trend portfolio. It's been acting really nice. Yesterday had a huge day for it. I know this is not an easy name to trade. It's very wide, so it's better to kind of just have some of this name, which I put this on, like I said, last week once it kind of broke out here. I started watching this with the price action getting really tight. So what about some of the, I don't want to turn away completely from the high tech trade. I have my eye on Microsoft because I think this is a very interesting chart. It really had a nice kick save today. It looked like this thing was really weak. And I don't know what caused this to do like a V recovery for the day. It was all the way down to 599. I saw some people make some money on this today. But I think if it can't get back above its 50-day moving average, it might be here's your break, here's your bear flag, and then maybe it goes lower. I thought that this was really interesting. And I think, like, if you're wondering, I'm going to go to this screen now. Right, OpenAI's Azure inference bill is ballooning, now nearing $4 billion a quarter. So this is part of the issue. Is why you're seeing things like um, Microsoft moved down and Meta moved down and Oracle moved down, because I don't think this is, and this is what a lot of people are thinking at this point, and why some of these stocks have come down, is because this is not sustainable. Their analysis shows roughly 12.4. This is coming from Ed Zitron, I believe. But their analyst shows that $12.4 billion has been spent over the last seven quarters just on Microsoft's cloud. So this is the issue, that people are kind of scratching their head and saying this is not sustainable. Hence, you heard Sam Altman come out the other day and say, "Yeah, we would be open to the government getting involved and providing a stake, because how else are they going to pay for this?" So that's kind of the issue that you kind of have to have in the back of your mind. We keep hearing more and more about data centers. I think we're at the point right now that we're at data center saturation. I don't know how much more you could kind of hear about this. And remember, the market is always forward looking, right? So when the market hears about someone else getting another contract and someone else getting another contract, and if the name doesn't go up on that, it's kind of priced in, or the market's not believing it. Look at what happened with NBIS. I had mentioned this stock yesterday, and I had said, which I don't understand where people are getting this from, but they did not have good earnings, in my opinion. I mean, if you want to compare the earnings from last year and say that they're good earnings that they grew from last year, okay, that's fine. But they're not generating that much revenues. You're talking about small revenues, right? And again, I'm not trying to be um, the full year revenue 500 to 550 million. The consensus was 578. So they missed earnings. And you're talking about a stock. The whole issue is, where is the stock gone, right? And my point yesterday was that if this was a $40 stock, okay, no big deal. But the stock went up to 120 bucks, right? That means you should be growing revenue faster and faster and faster, because the stock is tripled, and so that's the comparison that I think makes sense to me, is to say, okay, this stock is tripled in the matter of 3 to 6 months, right? So that means that the revenue should be off the charts, and it's not. Now they're dependent on getting contracts and people actually paying them, and that goes back to the previous table that I just showed that says that how much money these companies are spending. It's going to be a question of whether or not they're going to be able to fulfill some of these contracts that they're promising out a couple years. Anyway, that's my opinion. I'm not saying that the whole AI trade is dead, but I think, as I said in yesterday's video, you want to be super careful right now about adding risk into some of these areas of the trade. Let me just go bring up my watch list for the week. Reminder that if you're in the trading room, there's a link, by the way, that's scrolling on the bottom of the screen. That's how you could be a member of our trading room. But this is basically how I operate. Right. Number one, I compile a strong earnings list, because I only want to own the best names. I don't want to buy the names trending down. And I will kind of weed out some of those names and look for some opportunities. Notice the names that have done the best this week. Right. Well, even though Valero Energy was down, but that stock has been doing well this week. 3M, right? Lilly, which we already talked about. GSAT, which has been amazing, and I'm not in this one, and I feel horrible for not being in it. But biotech has done very well. Uh, uh, Wayfair has done very well. And these are the new names that I've recently added. Mentioned Nucor already. Dick's Sporting Goods, which I thought might get a boost from the ONON, covered Berkshire Hathaway. But that's how I kind of set things up. And then I kind of look and see how those names develop. Again, I don't start with all these names. I kind of just add as we go along for the week. The names that are in gray are from the previous week that I kind of weed out. Right? What did I carry forward this? I had about 25 names from last week's watch list. I whittled that down to 13, and then I added some newer names on here. So in any event, by the way, another name too is ATI, which looks pretty good. That's how we kind of, I kind of set things up, and then I look to kind of pay attention to where the money is flowing every day and what's going on, in terms of sector rotation. All right, guys, that is it for today's video. So again, staying on our toes right now and looking for opportunities in some of the under-owned areas of the market has really helped, and why I finished positive on the day today. So guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.